Yasmina, this is a favorite topic of mine. Influencers sometimes come in a second, sometimes they come in a lifetime. And when I speak, I talk a lot about this, and I talk about my grandfather, him, my grandmother, my mom, my aunt. They came from Kiev and immigrated to Canada. And I remember when he used to take me for walks in Montreal in the park when I was about five, and he spoke to everybody. You'd really like him, and he'd like you. He spoke to everybody, and um, and one day I asked him. I called him Zeta. How do you know all these people? And he looked at me, and I can see it so clearly even now. He looked at me and said, "You see that man over there?" One day I looked at him and I smiled at him, and he looked up and smiled at me, and he came over, and then we started laughing. And then another man saw us doing that and came over to us and talked to us too. And as a 5-year old, I'm thinking, and I remember the thinking part is, well, life's going to be great. All I have to do is smile at people, is what I learned. And then you start getting older and you make it more complicated until you start getting some more wisdom and saying, even just a smile can be enough to be an influence for someone. We all have lots of mentors, influencers, some positive, some negative. Can you share two or three people that have been influential in your life?
Absolutely, absolutely. So many people have influenced my life in so many positive ways. But some of the key people that come to mind when you ask me that question is the first one is Tim Ferriss. And I think for my generation, a lot of people have been very positively influenced and impacted by Tim Ferriss. And when I was 16 and Googling how to get charisma so I could be liked to make friends, I stumbled upon his blog and I loved that he was an experimentalist. I loved that he was so curious. I loved that he was always trying to find different ways to improve areas of his life and the way that he would break down relationships, health, language learning, traveling. And I was so inspired the way that his mind works. And I think about, he just put up a blog, right, and started sharing his thoughts. And I know it was in 2008, so it was a while ago, but that's the power of sharing your thoughts. And I actually, I'm inspired by him sometimes when I think about where I'm at in my journey right now. I think, if I can change one shy little girl's life in the same way that Tim Ferriss did for me back at the time, and as he's done for so many others. But if I could just do that even for one person, it's all so, so, so worth it. So, Tim Ferriss, definitely.
Good choice.
Uh, then a couple years ago, I encountered the work of a woman named Kasia Urbaniak, and she wrote a book called Unbound, A Woman's Guide to Power. And usually when I hear about women's empowerment, I'm like, okay, sure, but it's a bit cliche, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I remember when I listened to her book, I'd been kind of off personal development books and business books for a while because I was like, I don't need another book telling me how to live a better life. I'm good.
I'm good.
Um, but this book just set me so alight and so on fire. And it's really interesting because she was training to become a Taoist nun, while also being one of the most highly paid dominatrixes in Manhattan. So she has a very interesting education when it comes to things like power dynamics, communication, being in your power. And I truly believe that this is a must read for every single woman because it's one of the bodies of work that has empowered me in living a life that feels really good and communicating well and just being in my power, where so many women feel like they have to be the good girl and be disempowered and people please. That book is such a permission slip. So very inspired by her work. And the final one I would say is my mother, right? And I know that sounds cheesy, but also your parents have a massive influence on you. And my mother, she was 8 when she was in a car accident and became paraplegic from the spine down, and she never saw that as an excuse for anything. She still became one of the top students in her class, went to the best universities, got herself the funding and the scholarship, and wrote hundreds of letters in her second language, English, 'cause she was German, and to get herself opportunities. And she never takes no for an answer. She never sees a setback, and she became a concert pianist. And that drive is definitely something that has influenced me in many ways. And if I would slip a final one in, is kids inspire me so much because kids have not been tainted by this world. And so kids are in their purest form. I think so many of us, we come through this world, we grow up, and then we spend our adulthood trying to figure out how to be a kid again. And to be in
For
that
sure.
place of presence and joy and wonder and curiosity and exploration. And so kids are a massive, massive inspiration for me as well.
Ditto. Love working with kids, love coaching kids and all that. And they're the only, they're the least discriminatory, prejudiced, judgmental people of all as they're born.
That's so
Um,
true.
we just teach them that type of thing. And thank you for sharing that. That's spectacular. And kudos to your mom for doing a great job with you at the same time.
Mm.
Thanks.